I grew up in a time where there was so much of the family getting together to harvest, going from one garden to the next as things were ready. Countless memories of sitting around a picnic table and shucking corn for hours. So much happens in buying things from far, far away that are out of season where you live that I think really take away from the moment. And I think part of living and being alive is being a part of what's going on around you. My name is Kevin Willmann, and I make food that my community grows. It wasn't really even anything that I realized until later in life, as I was becoming a chef, how important that past was, because there was a little more of an understanding intuitively from the dairy farm my great-grandfather had to the hog farming that we did when we were kids. I certainly think it gives us a unique perspective in the food scene here in St. Louis. The sense of community amongst the chefs and restaurateurs in this city is phenomenal. I've never seen it anywhere else I've been. My wife and I opened Farmhouse in April of 2010. Sort of a tribute to our German roots and our farming roots. What I want to do is be a medium for all of this great food to come through a trained kitchen that is passionate about technique and process, that can show off what these guys are doing on the farms, to take advantage of the place where we live, the connections, the compassion and passion that everyone shares, and then the bounty of food that they grow. It's a great relationship. We love those guys. I come from a family of great cooks, and growing up in Greenville, Illinois was sort of like growing up back in time. There was a little more of a connection to putting food away and sustaining ourselves throughout. Somewhat of a rite of passage as a young man to kill the hog for the family reunion. It was kind of a terrifying experience, but it was all really immediate and really real. There was never any doubt where our food came from. I think seeing every aspect of what we eat has led to maybe a higher expectation of ourselves to make sure that nothing is lost. And it's something that's easy for everyone to get behind because everyone fundamentally knows what it means to throw something away. It means it's gone. When we talk about nose to tail, it demands a lot of craft. It demands a lot of attention to the whole process. And I think that that's sort of our role too, to hold on to some of those old traditions of preservation. And there's something in you when you're a chef, when you're throwing something away, that you know that you can turn it into something. It just breaks your heart. A lot of that philosophy, I think, comes from having respect for life. I believe that you should respect the whole animal. You shouldn't throw any single part of it away. It's second nature here. If an animal comes in, everything immediately gets dealt with. So the stock will be rolling that night, and everything is really delicately preserved and packed away. We use everything. We've got snoots that will dry out, and then, smoke those forever till they're crispy and delicious, using all the organs. We make a kidney toast dish here. The menu at Farmhouse is somewhat of an eclectic mix of a lot of pork-driven and locally driven foods. We strive to use as much as we can from within the region. We also have an affinity for fish here because that's a big part of my experience. When we were kids, we bounced around the Midwest a little after leaving Greenville. My parents split. My stepfather took a job in Pensacola. I don't know what about it, just I gravitated to it so much. I thought it was just incredibly beautiful. We were able to fish off of the docks into the bayous or swim across to the islands. Even in 13 years old, I remember thinking that this is a pretty amazing place to be. I was somewhat studious. I had a vision of engineering and was really mechanical as a child. I loved taking things apart and seeing how they worked, which I understand now makes a little more sense than I think I realized at the time. And I think that with cooking, it sort of helps my scattered brain have all of these other little outlets. There was a pretty tight-knit community in the fishing world there. We caught fish and took them to the fish peddler, and I think before I was even 16, I got a job. And I would cut fish all day. And as I got better at executing the knife work, I think it drew a passion in me to do more of it. One day I was making the delivery of some really pretty tuna. And on the fly, I got a massive spurt of confidence and decided that I was going to challenge Chef to maybe give me a job if I could clean a fish better than he could. When I performed well against the master, they were kind of quick to take me in. Working on the line for a great many years, it definitely gives you an intuitive perspective on all of these little facets of the business. And I started to see everything was just so interwoven and interconnected. My job at Farmhouse has become more and more of a gatherer and butcher. Every week I go and I get the eggs for the restaurant. I get much of the produce. I go to a butcher shop. We have the ability to make relationships and to monitor where our food comes from, to have a better chance to understand what went into the whole process of growing the food that we're serving. And I think that instead of just being a cook all the time, I'm starting to learn maybe how to be a chef and maybe how to teach a little bit more and be better at sourcing the food that we want to sell. It puts more of a connection on it to me. It makes it more personal. It makes me care more. Growing up on a small farm, you have to make things work. You have to depend on your family. You have to depend on your community. And this restaurant is very much that way. I mean, it exists by the grace of our family. It supports a lot of the same kinds of things that we were doing when we were kids. So there is a practical nature to having a restaurant that wants to use every part, but there is clearly a human level to it. There's clearly a respect for life.